Welcome to Come Share the Joy with your host, Debra Schultz. This week's guest is Ronnie Hinson. Ronnie is a longtime Southern gospel singer and songwriter with a rich musical heritage. He has traveled for 54 years, singing to some of the largest crowds to ever hear gospel music. He also is the organizer of the original Hinsons, which was founded in 1967. Ronnie is known best as the composer of the gospel music standard, The Lighthouse, written in 1970. The Lighthouse won the coveted Dove Award and prestigious Singing News Fan Award for Song of the Year in 1972. He has had so many #1 songs and was inducted into the GMA Hall of Fame and the SGMA Hall of Fame, along with a vast amount of awards over the years. Ronnie and his wife Lisa pack a powerful punch against the powers of darkness as they tour, singing and exhorting in that uncompromising manner the Hinsons have always been known for. Coming from a long and fruitful ministry since childhood as a missionary, Lisa is all about selflessness. She contributes greatly to the success of the ministry, both on the stage and behind the scenes. Lisa Hinson has a beautiful voice. In its own unique way, it makes her a very recognizable stylist. Lisa is often sought after as a singer and speaker for women's conferences all around the U.S. When it comes to describing who Ronnie and Lisa Hinson really are, above all the other high marks, sits the word real. With all they've seen and done, it's not about applause, trophies, and inductions, or even crowds of large numbers. Rather, they will and must be known as soul winners. Would you please welcome Ronnie Hinson to the show?
I am so honored to have you sitting in a chair beside of me.
Anytime I can tell the good news, tell about Jesus, and share that with friends, and I say friends because some of the people that are watching and listening have never met me, and I've never met them. But I'm like Jesus, in this respect anyway, I call those things that are not as though they already were, and so I anticipate getting to know them. And sometime down the road, we're still out traveling and going and singing, and all my family, my brothers are in heaven, and my sister Yvonne and I are the only ones left here with an older sister that she takes care of. But we're still out singing, my wife and I, and so who knows, we may be headed their way. So I want to tell them I love them.
That's right.
And that God can do anything for them, and it's all about Jesus.
Go way back to the Lighthouse.
Okay.
My word, what a song. And I have him sitting right here in the chair. I am so excited. This is Come Share the Joy, and my joy is just overflowed to have you right here.
Well, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure to talk about the Lighthouse, because I know what the Lighthouse was to me.
Yes, Lord.
And I was like a ship going down, no hope, and the devil was laughing at me, saying, I got you right where I want you.
Yes.
And your journey's over. And before I crashed against the rocks of sin, like many of the people that I'm talking to know what I'm talking about, they either have and God rescued them, and or they're about to crash against the rocks of sin. And we don't have to go that way.
No, sir.
That old lighthouse is still standing, still shining.
Still shining.
And I remember when I wrote the Lighthouse was the third song I ever wrote. You don't want to hear the first two, but the third song I ever wrote. And we lived out on the West Coast in California, right, literally on the West Coast. But I didn't like the ocean. That marine layer fog would come in, and you could be 15 minutes inland, and it was beautiful sunshine, gorgeous day, and you could go out to the beach, and that marine layer of fog would come in, and you'd be just soaking wet and all. So I didn't like the ocean, and had other reasons why I didn't like it that would be long and detailed. But I remember my dad, as a pastor, would have different church functions out on the beach, and he'd force us kids to have to go out there with him because they wouldn't leave us at home to tear up the house. And so we'd go out, and I didn't want to be there. and he didn't believe in the mixed bathing. So the women would swim way down here, and the men just almost out of sight. You could just see dots, you know. And I didn't want to be in that scene at all. They'd cook out, do hot dogs and all that, and I just want to go home. And I just walk out in the middle and look one way and then look the other way and holler, "Shark!" and everybody get out of the water. And I'd ruin the party. And so long story short, I never liked the lighthouse or the ocean, so I never laid eyes on a lighthouse. Even though there was one not far from us, I didn't know that was happening. And so I remember the big name groups that lived back east, and that's where my mom and dad were from, was Arkansas and Tennessee, and we had relatives still living back east, and we lived out there in California. And I remember when we had first started singing, we instantly captured a big following of people out there on the coast. And so those big concerts that they would have, where those big groups would come to sing, they'd load their buses with their newest 8-track tapes, and they'd come out to sing. Oak Ridge Boys, the Rambos, the Goodmans, and different people like that. And we were that group that sung just before they would sing, and we'd sing all their new songs. And so we were either ignorant or innocent, but I think it was the early one. But so the people would come out and they'd say, "The nerve of those professional groups singing you guys' songs," and we'd say, "That's the way those professional groups are. They'll just butt right in, you know." And so they asked us the promoters asked us, would we sing something of our own? Because they wanted to keep us on the program, because they drew a crowd with us. And so we told them we'd try to do that. So one night, 2 weeks before a big concert, we're working on songs out of the songbook, trying to translate them into something we could sing our style, and it wasn't working. And all my siblings were younger than me, and so they were about to go to sleep on me, and I just laughed and I said, "I'm going to go down to the basement to the bathroom and write us a hit song." And they laughed and I laughed, and so I went down into the basement of the church, big church, and in 7 minutes on a piece of toilet paper I wrote "The Lighthouse," and instantly when I was writing it, I knew it wasn't going to come around again, but I was watching the ink fade into the toilet paper, and I was thinking I'd never be able to understand what I said. But it was like the Lord leaned over in the most unopportune place and time, which, you know, he did come in a manger.
Yes,
Jesus did. And in a lowly cattle stable. And so he shows up in those places that you wouldn't imagine he would come, but he will find a nobody in the gutter and in the slums of humanity, and as Kenny put it in a song, the scrap heap of life, and that's where he'll show up.
Glory to God.
And he found me in that bathroom stall and wanted to speak to me, and it was like he sung it to me in my ear. And so I wrote it down as fast as it come to me, and took it back up. And by that time, the ink had faded to where I was going to try to sing it to everybody, and I couldn't understand what I'd written. And so I beat around the bush with it and couldn't clearly understand my own writing, and I finally wadded it up and I threw it in the toilet. There's stories that say somebody else did, but I threw it in the trash, I mean. And so after a while, while we were singing, trying to practice, I kept on trying to cipher and say, "Lord, bring this back to my memory, what I'd written." And it wasn't long until I said, "I want to try that again, and I want you, Kenny, to sing the lead on it," because he was our lead singer. And so I said, "I want you to sing the lead on it." And so we reached and got it and unraveled it, and it was not clear, perfectly clear, but it was like the ink had cleared back up to where you could literally see the words on it. And so I started singing it to him, or he started singing it, and I was feeding him those words. And empty building seats probably 1,000 people, but the glory of the Lord just filled it like every seat in the house.
Yes, sir. Glory to God.
And you could tell that God had orchestrated something bigger than us. And so somebody asked me not long ago, said Ronnie said, you must have felt like John in the third heavens when you wrote that song. And I said, well, John did have something to do with it. So that's the story of the Lighthouse. And when it started,
that's awesome.
When it, we went on a tour in an old bus, 1948 Greyhound Silverside, and that bus had an engine that was about to blow up, and yet we were crazy enough and ambitious enough and felt like we were called enough that God would take care of us, and we took off in that old bus, and I remember crossing the Arizona desert, and it ran out of fuel, or the fuel lines stopped up, and I was spraying ether into the intake manifolds in the back of the bus, because they'd told us that there's a truck stop. If you reach the top of this hill, there's a truck stop just on the bottom of that hill, and you'll be able to fuel up. And so it was like the world will lie to you, but Jesus won't disappoint you. When you follow His plan, He will never say gotcha. And but there was no truck stop, and I wasted 6 cans of ether and passed out at the back of the bus.
God love your heart.
But we were going to a place called Prescott, Arizona. We were of the same church denomination that the Goodmans were in, and so we were all booked to sing at a youth service out there, youth rally. And so we met the Goodmans, and that night I sung The Lighthouse. And so Rusty and Howard and Sam and all of them heard it, and they wanted to record it. And I said, you can record it, but not until we record it first. They said, well, we've got a recording studio in Madisonville, Kentucky. If you'll come back there, we will produce your record. And so we went back and recorded the original recording of The Lighthouse.
Awesome.
And then a few months later, the Goodmans recorded their version. Of course, they were very popular, and we weren't. Nobody knew who we were. But here's what had happened. When I was a kid, we were rehearsing. We had just started the group, and maybe a couple years we've been going. And so I went to my original bass player's house to rehearse, and we never. It was so foggy with that marine layer and what they call tule fog that I couldn't drive home. So I just said, I'm going to pile up here on the couch, and I'll go to work in the morning at my job from here. And I laid on the sofa at his house in a strange environment, and it was dark. And some people won't understand this, but some people know exactly what I'm talking about. I laid there and had a dream of wanting to sing, wanting to travel and sing. And I felt a hand reach over the backside of me and rolled me off into the floor on an old 1960s shag rug. And somebody had been outside and walked in with their wet feet. It may have been me, and I remember that old shag rug smelled like a wet dog. And I thought, here I am laying on this stench, and I'm listening. The room illuminated with the presence of God, and I heard the voice of God say, Ronnie, said, I know how much you want to minister for me, and said, I will take you all the way to the top with your family if you'll take me with you. And I thought, even after that, I thought, how in the world could God get me out of California where singing's so-so, but it's not like it would be if you were going to try to make a ministry, a career out of it. How would I ever get out of California? And God's master plan started working. And that was 69, and in 1970, that night in that church, I wrote that song, The Lighthouse. Moving ahead, we sang it that night, recorded it in Madisonville, Kentucky, sang it with the Goodmans, they heard it. And their version of it went to the top, and ours, unknown, I think we got it to number 4 or number 7 in the top 10. And The Lighthouse became the song of the year in 1972.
Yes.
First time that a song ever won both the Dove Award and the Fan Awards. And I don't think it's ever been done since. But I wondered what all the, I was a novice at writing songs, so I wondered what all the hoopla was about. So I got on a bicycle and rode. This was just a few weeks after I wrote The Lighthouse. I started trying to find a lighthouse. And I found the old Pigeon Point Lighthouse north of Santa Cruz, California. And I sat on a rock and looked at that faded ink that I could barely read, and looked at what I was seeing, that I'd never seen anything like it. But God described to me in those words on that exactly what I was seeing, and I wept and cried and knew that was bigger than any of us. And so that is how The Lighthouse come about. And that song, I told my family, I said, if we can just get to Texas, there's a big concert in Texas. We're going to go on tour. So we were on tour going through Prescott, Arizona, where we sung with the Goodmans. First tour out of California. Next stop was this big concert where I had booked at the big main auditorium in Fort Worth, Texas. And I said, if we can just get there, we're booked to sing there, and that'll be the breaking point for us. And so we finally arrived at that auditorium, and I said, you stay here on the bus, kids, and I'm going to go in and introduce myself to the promoter and tell him we're here and we're ready to sing. So when I got I found the promoter. I said, I'm Ronnie Hinson with the Hinsons. And he said, the who? And I said, the Hinsons. He said, I've never heard of them. I said, sir, you booked us to sing. And I said, my family's dependent on this being their breakthrough, to sing this big concert. And he said, well, it'll have to be some other time, some other place, and by some other promoter, because I don't even know you and ain't got time. He said, this is a stamp school graduation ceremony. So I went back and told my kids. They were mad at me. They said, they all sat in the back of the bus, and I sat up there by myself. And so we were halfway between Fort Worth and Dallas, Texas, and they said, I said, I'm going to turn this bus around and go back and tell them we're going to sing. So I went and found them, and I said, sir, I said, I'm going to sing on the steps of your auditorium if I have to sing on that, but I'm going to sing. And he said, don't embarrass us. He said, I'll let you sing in the intermission. So I said, just one song is all I'd like to sing. Hey, Randy. And so he said, nobody will be in there to listen to you. They'll all be out in the lobby. Mm-hmm. And so we said we just sang one song, sung The Lighthouse. Power of the Lord hit that lobby, just like a vacuum cleaner. They pulled back in there, they're shouting and praising God. And that was so widespread how that happened during the intermission that old boy named Les Beasley with the Florida Boys who run the Gospel Singing Jubilee heard about it. And while we were on that tour going further back east, he invited us to come and sing a guest spot on the Jubilee. And so we said that'd be great. And so we went and did that. Mm-hmm. and it turned out great. And we took that old bus about to blow up out to Hornwall, where my dad was born, and he left as an orphan when he was 13. And snow was thawing, and so the ground was soft near the house. So we parked the bus out near the fence line, and we was living on that bus with those army cots in the bus. And all of a sudden, there's a knock on the door, and this was the first night we'd slept on the bus. And this guy says, "How much you want for this bus?" It looked like it was parked out there for sale. I said, "It's our only means of transportation, and we live on this bus." He said, "Okay, it just looked like it was for sale." So I turned him down. So next morning, knock on the door, different person. "How much you want for this bus?" I said, "It's not for sale." 4 times. 4th time, the Lord impressed upon me, "You better sell this bus." I said, so the guy knocked on the door, and I opened the door, and none of us said anything. And finally, I just said, $3,500 cash. And he said, "It's sold." I said, "Oh, but I got to tell you about this engine." I said, "It's a unique engine." I said, "You don't ever have to change oil on this one." I said, "You just pour it through and catch it on the bottom." And he said, we're all diesel mechanics, so we'll take care of it." So we unloaded our army cots and tied them in the back of a Pink's truck and headed for California, and spent everything we had by the time we got home, with 13 people in the back of the truck.
Oh,
And
that's dedication.
so when we got home, I mean, everybody thinks it's easy street, and that you just got a glamorous life. But when we got home, we broke. My dad had an old 1967 LeSabre Buick, and they called us from Les B's. They called us and said, we've never had cards and letters like this, wanting to hear those kids sing like they sing on the Jubilee." He said, "If you guys can get back here in 3 days, we're filming a whole year's worth of Jubilee filming. So if you can get back here in 3 days, we're going to make you a permanent member of the Jubilee." So that told me that from that moment, we became a household name in everybody's home. And that was God doing what he said he would do. We'd be faithful to him. We weren't perfect, but he was perfect. And we actually got our exposure in 1971 when we moved to Kentucky and started singing back east in the Bible Belt. Actually, that's when we really began our ministry. So from 71 to 79, in 79 we were voted #1 group in gospel music. Fastest rising group, I believe, in the history.
Oh, yes.
Gospel music.
Wow.
So
I remember watching the Jubilee. Our piano was on the other side of the room, and I was just little. I had the coffee table, and I'd sit there. Jubilee come on, and I would, Jubilee. That it's in you at the beginning, isn't it?
Yeah. I remember quitting the Jubilee every time we'd go there to film. We'd be out on the road singing, and we'd come in tired and have to sit in that makeup chair, and we were holiness people, We
I didn't believe in that, did
put that makeup on me.
my mama whipped me.
Yeah. And so they'd put that makeup on us, and it'd get up in my nose. I'd be sneezing and having to drink coffee to stay awake 6 o'clock in the morning. And every time we'd say, "We're going to quit this. This will be the last time we ever do this."
No.
And we didn't have any idea that it was what it was doing, bringing us into all those homes. And it was God orchestrated. It's you just you look back over it, and you just have to say, I know we didn't know what we were doing. And so to God be the glory.
Yes. So what's going on now?
I am traveling today, busier than I've ever been. It's been an amazing thing. My wife Lisa does the booking for me, and she is a slave driver. She just I had 2 days that I was going to relax before I headed to California, and so she just booked them up today. And so I don't have any downtime, but we're enjoying it.
Yes.
Got a new project. It's 50-year anniversary of the Lighthouse.
Awesome.
The Lighthouse at this time, right now, this moment, it was about to change, but it had ruled as Song of the Year in 1973 until the convention had the award show one night of the convention. I think back then it was on a Thursday night.
Mm-hmm.
And so in 73 on a Thursday night, the Lighthouse gave up its first place status to a song called He Pilots My Ship, which is another song that I wrote, and it shot myself in the foot. But I also still love He Pilots My Ship.
Yes.
But anyway, the Lighthouse was #1 at this time 53 years ago.
How about that?
Yeah.
God is good.
Yeah, He is. And so we're traveling, booking dates, and if anybody wants to book Ronnie Hinson, it's rh.lighthouse.com or rh.ministries.com. So 615-851-9542.
Thank you. And somebody's out there. Let me have a gift hidden inside you. You have ministered to me right here.
I'd say it again.
I said, you have ministered to me more than you ever know right here.
Thank you.
But there's somebody out there that has a dream.
Yeah. Well, and I've always said, they said, well, how did all that coming about the way it was, the toilet and all? I said, it simply says God can take nothing,
Yes.
touch it, and make something. I wrote a song that Canton Junction recorded, John Hagee's boy, the pastor. God has a better plan. He's so much wiser than the ways of man. Put it all in His able hands. He knows what to do. He's qualified. He's well rehearsed. He's the creator of the universe. When you've done all you can, God's got a better plan. And it's the truth, you know. Yeah.
Mama, thank you so much.
Well, you're just more than welcome, and anybody can tolerate this interview, God bless you.
Hey, everybody's going to love this interview. And I thank you for coming and sharing the joy of your salvation.
Thank you.
My guest.
I've got joy like a river.
That's right.
And can I just say one more thing?
You say whatever you want.
What God wants to take, or what the devil wants to take from you,
yes,
is in the title of your program, Joy. And the Bible said the joy of the Lord is our strength. Now, that's not our strength to just get out of bed or go eat a bite or
to share that in.
Wash your face or whatever. That is joy. In this case, means influence. The Lord gives you influence.
Yes.
And the devil wants to steal your influence, your joy. Nobody wants to follow a loser. Everybody wants to follow a winner. And so you be a winner. Even in the lowest times, you think about the fact that your lowest is better than the highest of that man or woman that doesn't know Jesus.
That's right.
Has to walk through circumstances alone. The joy of the Lord is our influence.
Yeah.
In 2020, Ronnie was, at his surprise, presented with an acknowledgement award that is given to very few, if any, artists and songwriters by the prestigious board of directors of the National Quartet Convention, recognizing Ronnie's signature song, The Lighthouse, for the lasting impact that the song continues to have after 50 years since its inception. Now let's listen to this legendary song.
There's a lighthouse on a hillside, and it overlooks life's sea. When I'm tossed, it sends out a light that I might see. And the light that shines in darkness now will safely lead me on. But if it was wasn't for that old lighthouse, my ship would sail no more. Now everybody that lives around us, they say, go on and tear that old lighthouse down. We all know the big ships, why they don't sail by this way anymore. And I just can't see no use in it standing round. Then my mind goes back to that stormy night when just in time, thank God I saw the light. It was the light from that old lighthouse, and it still stands up there on a hill, and I thank God for that old lighthouse. I owe my life to him. On that old raging sea of life, Jesus is still that old lighthouse. And from the rocks of sin, you know, I still remember that old stormy night in my life when I had no hope, but then I saw that glorious light, and now I can clearly see. If it wasn't for that lighthouse, where would this ship be? And I thank God for my lighthouse. Every day I owe my whole life to him. For Jesus is that old lighthouse, and from the rocks of sin he has shown his light around, all around me, now and forever I can see. But if it wasn't for that old lighthouse, then where would this ship be? If it wasn't for that old lighthouse, then tell me, where would your ship be?
See you next week. Thanks for joining us.